making our best effort to bring people that we know that are honest, straightforward, that know their job. We are making best efforts to bring them to provide us with the information. So that being said, I'll hand over the mic to Auntie Bola King. Thank you. We can't hear you, Ma.
To mute myself.
Okay.
And also, I hope, and then I need to, can you see me? Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. It's morning here in Calgary. Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. Good evening, wherever you are on the surface of this Earth, planet Earth. It's a privilege to make a presentation and speak about Canada. Can you see the screen? The first screen that says "Welcome to Canada." Okay. Okay. So my name is Bola King. I'm licensed with Canada Immigration. I've been here for the past 24 years. And this is what I do. It's a passion for me. It's not about the money. The joy is when I see people arrive in Canada. But the first step starts with information. Information is key. The Bible says that my people perish for lack of knowledge. So some people embarked on this journey without adequate knowledge and they fell by the wayside. But then once you know the truth will set you free. So I'm here to present the truth as per Canadian immigration rules and requirements. There is no shortcut. There is no magic to getting into Canada. You either meet the requirements or you don't. It's as simple as that. Everything is online. So it's not a matter of man, no man, speak to somebody on my behalf, intercede for me. There is no such thing. If you meet the requirements, I will let you know instantly. You don't meet the requirements, I'll also let you know. So you don't waste your time, you don't waste your energy, you know. And the information you get will also help you so that you don't get scammed by scrupulous people out there. There's so much out there on the internet promising you heaven and earth. If it sounds too good to be true, then it might not be too good. So just beware. I will start without wasting your time because I know it's late over there and we have a limited time. We still have questions and answers. So without further ado, I will introduce Canada through national anthem.
It's not playing, we can't hear it.
You can? Okay, just a minute.
We can't, okay. We still can't hear it.
You still can't hear it?
No.
Okay.
Audio.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yeah, audio. Okay. I can help if you want to.
Yeah, please just take over.
Okay.
Seem to be having issues here.
No problem.
I hope it's not network. So please just let the audience know that in case it cuts off for any reason, they should just hang in there. They should just hold on.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, admin. Can you hear me? Can you hear this music?
No.
Can you hear the music?
And I can't either.
Can you hear the music, the sound?
No.
Can you hear the sound?
No.
No. I paused it.
Okay.
How about now?
No.
No?
No. Hope this network works.
Brother admin. Sorry? 1 second. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I can only see advanced sharing options.
Did you click on the share audio?
I didn't see that option. That's why.
Okay. Where? View options, right? Is it view options? Okay, all it says here is zoom ratio, hide video panel, request remote control, exit full screen, stop participant sharing. Okay. No, it's at the top. Yeah, it's at the top I'm looking at. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is me. This is my own. Go ahead. Sorry, this is just out of. I thought we tested this.
We did. We did. Yeah, I can't either.
Do you want to continue without it, or?
Okay. Yeah, let's just continue then. Yeah,
okay.
Let's
okay,
continue.
No problem.
So let's go to slide 2. Okay, so this is a map of Canada. We have 10 provinces and 3 territories. From the east to the west, Canada has the second largest landmass after Russia. For example, to tell you how vast it is, if you're traveling from the west, British Columbia, to the extreme east, Newfoundland and Labrador. By air is 6 hours, which is almost the flight from Nigeria to UK. By road, it's about 5 days. So that's how spread out it is. Each province, we have the West, we have the East, we have the Atlantic, we have the South, we have the Northern Territories. So this just gives you an overview, just gives you an aerial view of what Canada looks like. The next screen, please. The next one. Okay, so the head of government presently is, our Prime Minister is Justin Trudeau, and the capital is Ottawa. Official languages are English and French, so it's a bilingual environment. Now, if you have a knowledge of French, working knowledge of French, you will have an edge, you have a big advantage. The population as of this year is 39.6 million. So you can see there's lots of space, lots of land, but it's not heavily populated. Life expectancy, 82.96, literacy, males, 99%, equal literacy level for males and females. Next, please. So like I said, 10 provinces, 3 territories. The climate, yeah, that's a big deal for some people, because when some clients called, they said, can you find me a place that is not too cold in Canada? And I'm like, everywhere in Canada is cold. When you think of Canada, just think cold, and there's no way around it. It's just that some places are a little bit, just a little bit, just like British Columbia, which is to the far west. They have more of rain, you know, they don't have much snow, but in the northern part of British Columbia, they have heavy snow. Now in the middle part, the prairies, which are Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, yes, that's where the real deal is. And also in the Northwest Territories, you can get up to minus 45 degrees Celsius in winter. Whereas in summer, it could get as high as plus 35, plus 38, depending on the day. It's so cold in the Northwest. The Northwest is way above. And it's so cold there that, you know, they built a hotel with ice block there, and it stands all year round. So that's just by the way. It's not meant to scare anybody. We're here, we've been here, and we survived. So if you make it here, you'll survive as well. You just have to put on your survival skills. Canada has the 8th largest economy in the world and belongs to the group of G8. Let's move on, please. Next slide, please. So that's just an example of how high the snow could get, you know, depending on the region where you are. And you can see that someone is there, so you can survive it. Yeah, we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so why do I need to come to Canada? Why is Canada such hot cake these days? Rich economy, great schools, lots of tourist attractions, a peaceful nation, and it's multicultural. It's one of the most multicultural nations in the world. So let's move on. So just as an example of how multicultural and inclusive the government is, the present cabinet has 19 women and 16 men. And also the gentleman, Hajar Sejan, he was the Minister of Defense for 6 years. And then he's currently the Minister of International Development. He's originally from India. Ahmed Hussein was the Minister for Immigration for about 4 years. And from 2021, he became the Minister of Housing, Diversity and Inclusion. So there's room for everyone. It's up to you. how you walk out, like the Bible says, walk out your salvation with fear and trembling. So how you present yourself, how you build yourself up from day one with a spotless, without getting into problems with the system. Once you're able to abide by the rules, you work hard, the sky is the limit, as they say. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So how can I migrate to Canada? This is the main topic for today. There's different ways to migrate to Canada. However, like I earlier mentioned, there's so much information flying out there. If you do this, you do that, you do that, they make it sound so good. But I'm here to present the truth to you according to Canadian immigration rules. So let's go to the first topic, which is express entry of federal skilled worker. Some people know it as the skilled worker scheme. Before the express entry, which express entry came into being 2014, January 1st. Before then, Canada accepted up to age 49 to apply to Canada once you have the skills. The skills that we talk about are, you at a professional level. We're not talking about skilled handwork, because some people mix it up. They think it's the trade skilled handwork. No, this is a skilled work whereby you're skilled in your profession, you qualified for it, you have the necessary qualifications to back it up. Then at that time, you didn't need an English test, or even if you needed it, it was minimal score. But immediately they introduced the express entry, things changed. Before then, it was paper application. But from express entry, which was 2014, everything went online. The computer does everything. Everything is pre-programmed. That's why I said there is no shortcut and there is no magic to it. The computer does everything. So for you to qualify for express entry, again, it was easier when it first started. But then like everything else in life, things evolve. Express entry evolved. Things began to change. Now, at that time, age 38, age 39, you were able to get enough points because they award points for age, points for education, points for experience, and points for your score in the English test. And once you meet all the requirements, it's a done deal. You are bound to get the permanent resident visa to come and reside permanently in Canada. So there's a difference between permanent resident visa, which is called PR, and coming to study or work. The difference, studying and working or visiting are temporary visas. Temporary in the sense that you're coming to school or you're coming to visit, it's for an expected period. Just like somebody is coming to visit you from, maybe you live in Lagos and somebody is coming to visit you from Benin and they say they're going to spend 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, you expect them to pack their bags and leave. But for permanent, the word permanent means you're there to stay forever and ever. So that's why it's called the permanent residence, PR. So for this, it was easier to get the points back then, at least as at 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, it was still okay. The points used to drop as low as, there was a time it dropped as low as 416. So those with bachelor's degree, the highest point you could attain was 438, because your age, your education, your experience, minimum experience, work experience is 3 years that you should have had. And then your score in the English test organized by British Council. So it was easier then. There wasn't much competition, but then things began to change. There was so much demand from all over the world. And Canada looked at itself and decided that, look, we need younger people to populate our nation. younger people in the sense that they will work longer in the system and contribute longer to the economy of the system. So as you're thinking of what is best for yourself, Canada is also thinking of what is best for herself. So in that case, they awarded more points to those who are 30 years old and below. And those with master's degree also get more points. So because they wanted to pick the best. It's just like if you have a company, an organization, and you have vacancies for 10 people and 10,000 people apply. What are you going to do? You want to pick the best. So that's exactly what's happening. They want to pick the best. So it's not like, because some people think, oh, what do they have against older people? They don't have anything against older people. The only reason is that older people will retire earlier and start taking from the system. Younger people will work longer and contribute longer to the economy of the system before they attain the retirement age. So basically, that's what's happening. So far, express entry, from the word express, it means fast. When it was set up, it was supposed to take 6 months on the average once you're selected. The process is this. It starts with we assessing you. We ask you questions, your age, your education, your highest qualification. And let me chip in there. They don't accept, they only give award points to degrees. So either bachelor's, master's, PhD. But certifications are not awarded points, unfortunately, because there's so many certifications out there. But anyway, it's their country, they set up the rules, and only those who meet it will be able to get through. So the process goes thus. We assess you, we ask questions. Once we determine that you meet the requirements, then to start is we start with the evaluation of your highest qualification with an organization here in Canada. Then you take the English test organized by British Council at your location. Once those two things are done, then we're ready to set up your profile in the Canadian immigration system. We set up your profile, and you can be in that pool for up to 12 months, hoping that every time they select people, your point will be selected. Now, selection process happens twice a month. So your hope is that although when we assess you, we're able to tell you where you stand based on a lot of things are based, okay, let's say your age is okay, you have a master's degree, you have minimum 3 years work experience already, but then the English test, you fall short of 8 points, 8.0 average, then your points is going to decrease. Somebody with 8 points and above on the same level with you will have more points. So of course, the person with more points will be selected. So the computer does everything. So there's no man, no man in this. So basically, that's what it is. Unfortunately or fortunately, as at 7 years ago, the points started to increase. And during the COVID system, just before COVID hit, it was 470 minimum. And those who were able to attain that were those who are 30 years old and below, have a master's degree already, minimum 3 years work experience, and a score of 8.0, a band score in the IELTS, the famous IELTS that scares so many people. After COVID, during the COVID, it was paused. So right now there's a backlog and they're trying to catch up to make up for lost time. So right now, when they resumed last year, the points were as high as 500 and something, but eventually it started dropping. Right now, as at last week, it was 483. So we're hoping it will keep dropping. The drop depends on the people in the pool, on their points, the average of the points in the pool. So if people with higher scores, more of them are in the pool, then the score will go high. The selection score will be high. So it's your duty to ensure that you put in your best for the English test. Now, another way to gain more points is if you have a sibling, direct sibling, not your village relative, not the person you went to school with, not your friend, your brother or sister or half brother or half sister, or it's limited to those for you to be able to get points at the express entry level. You gain 15 more points at this level. Another way to gain more points is French. If you speak French, you hear French, you write French, you can read French, you challenge the French exam. Just the same way you challenge the English exam, you challenge the French exam. If you're successful in it, depending on how you do in it, you stand to gain 50 points. I have a client who had a knowledge of French, went and brushed up, with a coach, and he got the 50 points additional. And today they're arriving next month, June. So those are the ways whereby you can add more points. I know it's not an easy thing to learn a language, especially not at this level. But if you already had a knowledge and you can brush up in it, it's a good way to gain additional points. So basically, that is it for express entry or federal skilled worker, as it's called. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay, the provincial nominee program, I'm sure a lot of people are aware, they've heard about it. It's a program whereby a province nominates you to come to and live in their province. Now, before you get excited, 10 of the provinces in Canada demand that you have a job offer first from that province before you can even start any application. And for you to get a job offer from outside is almost impossible. It's almost impossible because of the process. I'll explain that during the work visa stage. But there are two user-friendly provinces, like I always say, two user-friendly provinces. Saskatchewan, I'm sure a lot of us have heard Saskatchewan. It's located in the heart of North America. It's boundaried by Manitoba and Alberta. It's directly above Montana and North Dakota. By the way, we have a border with the US. From the east down to the west, we have borders. So you can cross by land, you can fly in, and just a few kilometers separate some of these provinces from some of the states in North America, in the USA. Population of Saskatchewan is 1.2 million as at this year, and the capital city is Regina. The Regina population is barely 250,000, and that's due to boost from new immigrants that have flooded in. Now, for the provincial nominee, they accept up to age 45. This is a province whereby you don't need a job offer before you can apply or qualify, but the requirements are a bit rigid as well. So age 45 and below, you must have a master's degree already. Again, policies changed. It didn't used to be like that. With a bachelor's degree as at 3-4 years ago, you were still able to get into Saskatchewan. Their own point system is different. It's a lower system. You need to score a minimum of 60 points. However, the selection they do every month, once you're in the pool, the number of applicants in the pool dictates the average points for the selection for each time, for each draw. So in the past, they used to select as low as 60 points. I remember a client, we set up his profile for Saskatchewan, like today, And I told myself, I'm not sure. I don't know when it will drop to 60 or if it will drop to 60. But then let's just put you in the pool, hoping for the best. You can be in the pool for up to 12 months, hoping. But the next day they had a draw, they had a selection, and 60 points and above were selected. So that was then. Now, for the past 3 years, selection in Saskatchewan has not dropped below 68 points. And those who gain the 60, who attain 60 points, are those with a master's degree. So even with that master's degree, the last time they selected 68 points was last year, August. Although recently they selected 69 points and above, but it was towards some targeted occupations. Now, 2 ways for you to gain more points for Saskatchewan to go above that 68. If you're 34 and below, you could gain 2 more points. You are 34 and below, you have a master's degree. Now, okay, this is where the rigidity comes in for Saskatchewan. For you to attain that 68 points with a master's degree, age 45 and below, you must have attained 10 years work experience. 10 years. And it's not just any 10 years, it's the past 10 years. From like today, you count 10 years backwards. So like we're in 2023. So from 2013 till 2023, you must have that experience. In addition to that, what you studied must match what you have been doing. So it's not like in some countries whereby you study zoology because you have connection in the bank, you're working as a banker. It's not acceptable for Saskatchewan. What you studied must match what you have been doing, either at the bachelor's level or at the master's level. Again, certifications are not awarded points. You must also pass the English test, and a band of 8, 7, will give you good points. So you can be in the pool for up to 12 months, hoping. If you're 34 and below, you gain 2 more points. So you'll be at 70 points. Whereas somebody who is 35 already and above will be stuck at 68 points. Now, 2 ways to gain points. If you have a relative in Saskatchewan, which is very rare, but it's possible, you never know. Not friend, relative. And when they say relative, it's not a relative that you're from the same village, or you grew up together, or you live next door to each other, or you went to school together. No, I've heard all kinds of relative connections that don't add up. What Canada is looking for is a blood connection. It could be your cousin, but then cousin, there's a limit to cousin. It can't be your mother's sisters, brothers, aunties, uncles, sons, brothers, friends. No. It has to be close cousin, either first or second. It could be your auntie, it could be your uncle. And it's not the auntie and uncle of Nigeria where I come from, where anybody who is an elderly person is called auntie. An elderly person is called uncle. No, that's not the auntie and uncle we're talking about. We're talking about related auntie, your mother's sister or your father's sister, your mother's brother or your father's brother, or maybe have your mother's cousin or your father's cousin. Yeah, that's acceptable. It could also be your stepmother, stepfather. It could be your first, second cousin. It could be half sister, half brother. So any of those close relatives. And in addition, you also have to show proof. The proof is birth certificate linking you with that person. So the link will be, let's say your first cousin, the link will be birth certificates of both moms that are related or both dads that are related, and your birth certificate and your cousin's birth certificate. It will show all the names there and the link. So that is how the relative point works. And I understand in Nigeria, a lot of clients have brought me national population birth certificate. It's accepted. However, there is a lot going on in Saskatchewan. There are people buying relatives. There are they pay money to get someone to become a relative for them. And the funny thing is when they're filling in the profile, they tick relative, and then that gives them automatic 20 points. Because you add 20 points, let's say you're at 68 and you discover you have a relative, it will add 20 points. You'll be at 88. No matter what they select, they've never gone above 88 points in their selection. So if they select 70 and above, you are in. They select 75 and above, you are in. They select 84 and above, 87 and above, you are in. You're covered with the relative point for Saskatchewan. So there's a lot of racketeering going on, as I will call it. So people will just tick relative, and then when they're selected because of their high points, it's now time to show proof. Then they now come crying to me because, I mean, I didn't know them before, but then somebody refers them, and then they say, I was selected by Saskatchewan, and but then I need a relative. And I'm like, you need a relative from where? And they say, I need a relative to back up the fact that I ticked relative so that I can, my 20 points can be intact. And I'm like, why did you tick relative? And they say, well, somebody had promised, they felt that they could be able to find one, or somebody had promised and backed out, and so many stories. And yeah, so in the end, I just advised them, I'm sorry, you have to withdraw your application because you have to prove it. They think by being selected, after being selected, then you start looking for a relative as if you're going to a grocery shop to go and look for a relative in aisle 54. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to do your homework, do your due diligence before getting to us. All I'm concerned about, I don't know who your relative is. All I'm concerned about is you have a relative, you have the papers to back it up, and then we put everything together from our end and we move forward from there. I do not supply relatives. I don't have a shop selling relatives. I don't. And I don't know any store that sells relatives. So that's strictly your department. So another way to gain points for Saskatchewan is, again, French. If you speak French, read French. Now for the French for Saskatchewan is different for the one for Express Entry. French for Saskatchewan, you don't have to score the maximum points. And there are points that you can gain. Maximum is 10 points that you can gain. I have a client who brushed up on her French for Saskatchewan. She gained 4 points to her 68 points. And she was landed at 72. She was in the pool one day, they picked 72 and above. So it could be as little as 2 more points, 4 more points, depending on how you perform in the French test. So that is it for Saskatchewan. We'll move on to the next user-friendly province, as I call them, Manitoba. Manitoba, again, sandwiched, between Ontario and Saskatchewan. The capital is Winnipeg, population 1.36 million. It has a moderately dry climate. Winter could get as bad as -40, -45 degrees centigrade. But then in summer, we have really hot summers, +38 centigrade. So for Manitoba, the provincial requirements are that if you have a master's, again, everything is based on what you have. What you have will determine the points you get. The age is fluid. Up to age 45, it's fluid. Your age determines your points. If you have a master's degree, again, you gain more points. Now, if you have a relative in Manitoba, they have their own point system, which is also different from Saskatchewan and it's different from Express Entry. If you have a relative in Manitoba, because on your own, with your master's by itself, you cannot gain points, enough points. You can't. Initially, when it started, it was okay, but then again, the points increased, policies changed, and so on and so forth. So right now, even if you have a relative, there's still some things you need, again, to boost your point system for Manitoba. Now, if you have a friend in Manitoba, yes, you can gain points. The difference is this between gaining points for friend and gaining points for relative. For friend, you only gain 50 points. Whereas for relative, you gain 200 points. You can see the difference. Who will they select? There's a person with more points. So the person with more relatives. Now, 200 points for relative, it doesn't stop there. If your relative lives outside the capital city, which is Winnipeg, they live in any other city that is not Winnipeg, in Manitoba, you gain additional 50 points. So, and that could help you to clinch their point system. Again, relative is the same blood relative, not village relative, not tribal relative. And so that's it basically about Manitoba. I'll touch briefly on Alberta. Alberta does not have relative. Alberta selects randomly from the express entry pool. They select randomly. Let's say they need construction managers. They need what's it called? They need IT professionals. They can select randomly from the express entry pool. And they don't go with the express entry pool points. Their points could be as low as 350, depending on how desperate they are for a particular occupation. So sometimes, even if you know you cannot achieve the maximum points of 470 and above, depending on your occupation, it still pays to be in the pool. Some of my clients were selected from that pool randomly by some province. Some of them were selected randomly by Alberta, for financial, it was financial something then. Then Nova Scotia selected nurses, some of my nurses from the pool randomly when they needed nurses desperately. They also selected preschool teachers at some point. And then Ontario selects randomly from the pool as well. But their point system is a bit high. It's usually 440, 450, thereabouts. But in occupations that they have shortages in, usually IT, business managers, business analysts, business developers, stuff like that, IT is hot cake, sometimes they select accountants, random, depends on the area. So if you're in the pool, the express entry pool, all hope is not totally lost. Again, depending on your occupation, how much in demand it is or how much shortage they have of it in a particular province. So they can go into the pool randomly. And the word randomly means just because they need nurses does not mean they're going to select all the nurses in the pool, because you might have 3 million nurses in the pool. So random selection, you could be favored and you may not. So, but that is Ontario and Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan. The other provinces, you absolutely need to have a job offer. New Brunswick is also an exception. New Brunswick organizes information sessions. Usually they come to Dubai quite a lot to offer information sessions in particular occupations. Now you have to watch out for when the information session is coming up and what occupations they're looking for. You sign up online, and if they invite you through a letter to attend that information session, yeah, that's the first step. So I've brought in some clients through that means. That was years, but when they first started it was still user-friendly then. Some of my clients were invited to Dubai from Nigeria. They attended the session. Immediately you attend the session, you get back home, the rest is easy. We start the process and all that. And then, they are now citizens in Canada. So, but then again, like other things, it got tighter, it got tougher. But it's good to check out New Brunswick as well. Again, if you're bilingual, English and French, New Brunswick is bilingual. And so it could help you as well. Sometimes they have a selection for French-speaking people. So it's if you have a knowledge of French, it's a good advice to go and brush up on it, because you never know which of these provinces you'll be favored with once you challenge the exam. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so for work permit, we get lots of inquiries about work permit. How can I get a job in Canada? I'm looking for work. Online as well, you see all kinds of things. This work permit thing has been bastardized online. Oh, we can get you to Canada. They will pay your ticket fare. They will pay your accommodation. They will house you. They will give you free lunch. Like, okay, because you are from the moon, you know, you are somebody they desperately need. You're the only one in this world. It's all scam. They tell you what you want to hear. Now, for work permit in Canada, it's almost impossible to get it from outside Canada. The only two ways you can get it is through one, LMIA. LMIA, the process of LMIA is that an employer in Canada is looking for workers. By law, the employer must first of all advertise for 6 weeks in Canada in 3 different mediums, looking for a Canadian, a citizen. The citizen could be anybody. It doesn't have to be a white Canadian or black Canadian. It could be any, as long as you're a citizen of Canada or a permanent resident. If after 6 weeks, the employer cannot find the right person, which is almost impossible, but if after 6 weeks, they cannot find, they will fill out 12 pages of forms because they have to apply to the government of Canada to show proof of why they want to employ a foreigner from outside. They will show, they will list all the Canadians and PRs that they interviewed and the reasons why they did not qualify for that position. They will submit those 12 pages of forms with a payment of $1,000. They wait for 4 to 5 months for the government to say yes or no. That, okay, we believe you. We believe you've done everything possible and you cannot find. Okay, here is an LMIA certificate. With that LMI certificate, they will use it to apply for work permit for that person. By this time, 8 months, almost 8 months is gone. Which employer is going to wait for 8 months to fill a position? We have to be true to ourselves. We have to be practical. Unless you have something that is so rare. Maybe you're a rocket scientist. Okay, then you can't say rocket scientist just around, or neurosurgeon, or something weird. Or there's a desperate need. Like there was a time they were hiring restaurant workers. Yeah, there's a desperate need. Yeah, then an employer will go all out to go through this harsh process, so to say. The reason why the government does this is there's still people unemployed in Canada. So why do you want to go outside? Look outside first. You have to look inwards first. Employ the unemployed from inside first before you go looking outside. If you can't find, then you can look outside. The second way to get a work permit is if, let's say a couple applies for study, to come to Canada for study. Maybe the wife applies for study. You can apply for open work permit for the partner. Yes, again, it's not guaranteed that they will give that, they will approve that work permit. They may not. There is room for it, yes, but then it's at the discretion of the officer handling the file to approve that work permit or not. Also, the spouse could come in as a student alone, start the studies, and then choose to apply for open work permit for the spouse who is still outside. Again, it's not foolproof. They may not approve it, you know. So those are the 2 ways to get work permit. So be careful, watch out for fraudulence, although they're not going to write, I'm fraudulent, you know, online. You know, you only find out after your money is gone and there's nothing forthcoming. I've received a lot of so-called work permits that were sent to people. And when they send it to me to cross-check or, you know, when I'm interviewing them, how did you get this? They say, oh, they've already issued. I said, so if they've issued, what are you waiting for? They said, oh, there's still a letter coming. I said, no, There should be no letter coming. Let me see what they sent to you. An example is one that they sent. Everything looked good when I looked at it until I saw document number. Your document number is supposed to be your passport number. All Nigerian passports start with A or B, as in boy. This document number started with a K. So right there, I knew it was fake. It's a country that starts with K. Maybe Kuwait, maybe, I don't know, whatever. It's a country whose passport number starts with K. So that one has to be very careful. Some will even tell you, oh, they will not charge you until the work permit is out. An example is this one. Meanwhile, 1.5 million naira was gone down the drain already. And the person, this thing was supposedly issued in August. The person is still waiting for the supposed letter up till today. So anyway, let's move on to the next slide, please. Study. I've touched a bit on study, about how it relates to work permit for the spouse or the partner. For studies, yeah, you can choose to come to study in Canada for your master's or diploma. The easiest way is to apply for coming for a 2-year program. Now people ask me, oh, postgraduate. Yeah, postgraduate in Canada is just 1 year. And 1 year study, after you graduate from a 1-year study in Canada, you only get 1 year work permit. And 1 year work permit, if you work for 1 year, for that 1 year, it's not enough. It doesn't give you enough time to turn your situation around to become permanent. So that's the danger. Unless you choose to do another 1 year again, you must have a 2-year, you must have graduated from a 2-year program in Canada for you to be able to get 3 years work permits. You can see the difference. After working for 1 year out of that 3 years, then you can apply to become permanent. Now, some people say, oh, I want to come with my family. They don't have anything against you applying with your family. It's at the discretion of the officer. And because of the case of Nigeria specifically, because of the situation in Nigeria, they've seen that there's desperation. And they've seen that 99% who came to study from Nigeria did not go back. I mentioned earlier that when you go to study, you go back after you graduate. You're supposed to go back. If you go on campus anywhere, when you graduate, you go back to where you came from. That's the expectation. That's why it's called a temporary visa. But there's a caveat, there's a twist that, okay, if you choose to work, okay, we can give you work permit. And then through the work, after the work permit, if you work for 1 year, within that 3 years you're given, then you can qualify under the Canadian Experience Class, CEC. CEC, there's a selection under Express Entry. Sometimes the people they select is just those who have Canadian work experience, minimum of 1 year. So if you came to study for 2 years, you graduate, you get the 3 years work permit, you work for 1 year, we create your profile, we put you in you still have to take the English test. It's still done. Whether you're in Canada or not, IELTS is compulsory because you need points with your score. So you still have to take the English test, but then you get a boost. You get a boost from us having studied in Canada, you gain 15 points, and then you get a boost for having worked in Canada for a minimum of 1 year. So, but then that selection that day is usually just for those who have Canadian work experience. So I usually advise clients, try and apply for a 2-year program. Forget about masters. It's difficult to get into masters. It's not impossible. It takes longer. There's more requirements. And in Canada, it doesn't matter if you have a master's or diploma. It's what you can do that matters. It's not, I have DDD, OOO, PhD, and you cannot perform. So it's what you can do. Forget about that status thing. I have a master's, MBA, MBB. It doesn't matter. The important thing is if your end goal is to get the papers, yes, come in through the easiest way. And after getting the papers, you still want to go to attain 3 PhDs. That's your choice at that time. So now for expenses for studies, average tuition is about 16,000 Canadian dollars. And on top of that, which is something you will not see online, on top of that, the embassy expects you to have additional 10,000 for your upkeep, accommodation, feeding. That's for one person. So average of 26,000 Canadian dollars for 1 year is expected. Now you don't pay up front. So if you are coming for a 2-year program, that's 52,000 Canadian dollars. If you're applying with your family, your spouse is expected to have additional 8,000 for each child, that for the 2 years. For each child, additional 6,000 for the 2 years for each child. You're supposed to show proof and capability when we're applying for the student visa. So yeah, you translate that to whatever, to your, if it's in Naira, I think the rate is about 560 or something. Well, at the black market rate. At the bank rate, I think it's about 460 something, you know, so that's for you to work out the math. Now, for you to show proof that you have the capability, they don't accept checking accounts that goes in and out. Savings is preferred, or fixed deposit, or you could also add if you have pension, if you have properties, but the properties cannot outweigh the cash because it takes a while to sell properties. So the cash should be strong and it must be in savings or fixed for a minimum of 4 months prior to when we're submitting. It's good that the savings has been there ongoing. So it's not like you just quickly saved up just because you wanted to apply for studies. The best one is the fixed. Fixed, you can fix today and get the statement tomorrow. They know it because it's futuristic. They know that you fixed it for the next 180 days. For 6 months, it's going to be there. You're not going to touch it. So fixed is usually preferable if you have it. So now for the study visa, getting admission is not a big problem as long as you meet the requirements for the program. Now the issue is the study visa, especially for people from particular regions. And it's not about discrimination. It's about the fact that 99% of Nigerians don't go back after studying. Meanwhile, so they've seen it, they've seen the trend. So now to get the student visa is difficult. It doesn't matter if you live in the moon or if you're in UK, US, it doesn't matter. It's not the location where you are. It's about the fact that the Nigerian passport, you're not likely to go back because the country is not in a very good state. And they've seen the trend that more than majority, have not been going back. So to get the student visa is 50-50. There is nobody on earth can guarantee you, except the officer handling your file. And that's it. Nobody can promise you anything. The only thing we can ensure is get the admission, make sure it's packaged the way immigration wants it. And the rest is up to them and up to God. Now, on their website, it's there. It says, even if you submit everything required, there is no guarantee. It's at the discretion of the officer. So please have that in mind. What else about study? Now, if you're favored and you get the student visa, maybe you get it with your family, the children can go to school for free if they are in secondary and below, secondary and elementary. But if they're of university age, they have to pay international fees, just like you are paying international fees. And so bear that in mind when you want to package as a family. Some people also decide to come alone first, so it doesn't raise red flags when they see the whole family applying. The whole thing that the officer is looking at, what will motivate you to go back to your country when you finish studying? What do you have back home? What is so important to you back home that will make you go back when you're done? So those are the things they look at. They also look at travel history. Have you traveled somewhere before and gone back? Somewhere before is not Ghana. It's not Dubai. It's not South Africa. Sometimes, again, it's fluid. But if you have gone to UK, you've gone to US, and you went back, those are strong points that could help. But then there are situations whereby I've had people who visited Canada. Normally, they spent 1 month, they went back, they applied for study. They still refuse them because there's still other things they look at. So there is no 1 + 1 = 2. All we can do is just try, package it as best as they want it, and then we leave the rest to them. So that's it for study and Canadian experience class. Let's move on to business investor, please. Now the business investor program, when we talk about business in Canada, it's not the buying and selling. It's not, I travel to Dubai, I buy bags, I sell shoes. That's not the business they're talking about. They're talking about serious, like manufacturers, because one of the key things you have to show, the key requirements, is that your net worth must be at least 600,000 Canadian dollars. 600,000 Canadian dollars. I know I keep using Nigeria as an example, but that's what we are more familiar with. 600,000 Canadian is about 300 and something million naira. You have to show that your net worth. So it's not just saying, oh yeah, my net worth is, they will audit. They have auditors in Canada, approved auditors that will audit to ensure that it's really what it is. And then you have to be prepared to invest minimum of 150,000 Canadian dollars into a Canadian business, to buy a Canadian business or to set up one. In the past, if you're able to fulfill the conditions, you still have to take the English test, by the way, but their score point is low, very low for this. Age, they accept up to age 55 for the investor route. So the English test is low, and the important thing is having the finances and what kind of business. Now, you cannot buy a house in Canada and hope to come through the business. No, it's not. It's not doable. You can't come in and do real estate. They have a list of businesses. You can't come in and do real estate or come in and work from home. No. So. But the most important thing is to check your assets first. Assets, your business, what is it worth? It must be worth minimum 600,000 Canadian dollars, your total net worth. So I won't go much into that. If you fall into that category, feel free to call me and then we can go deeper. But the one thing I can say is, even if you meet all the requirements, you're still going to be in a pool. The pool system is different. The point system is different, province by province. However, once you're selected and everything goes through, you will only get a work permit. You will get a work permit with your spouse. Your children will get study permit. You will all come in. You will start the business. After running the business for 1 year minimum, then you can start the process of becoming permanent. So that is it for business or investment. It didn't used to be like that before. Before, once you meet all the requirements, you're selected, it's a done deal. It's permanent residence, straight off. But then they found out that people were using it just to come in business, and then they abscond. They've gotten the paper. So now you must run the business for a minimum of 1 year before you can proceed to the next level. Next slide, please. Spousal family sponsorship. Now you cannot sponsor a sibling. So your sibling cannot sponsor you to come to Canada. The spousal sponsorship is, let's say you're single in any part of the world. You meet a Canadian or a permanent resident. You fall in love, quote unquote, and things work out between both of you. The person comes to where you are, gets married to you. Then they go back to Canada. They can apply for you. They call it a sponsorship. They sponsor you, who is now their spouse, to come to Canada. So the thing about sponsorship is you have to prove that it's genuine, that it's real, backed up with documents and so on and so forth. So if you ever find yourself in that situation, get in touch, and then we can let you know the details, more details about that. But that's just an overview of spousal sponsorship. Okay, we move on to visitors. Visitor visa, like it says, visit and go. That's it. Just like the example I gave prior, you are expected to live within the period you're given, or the period you've said you're going to stay, and the period you were approved for. Now, I'm connecting it with refugee and asylum because a lot of people ask these questions. How can I come and claim asylum? The only way you can claim refugee or asylum is through the visitor's visa. If you are given the visitor's visa, you must come into Canada before you can claim refugee or asylum. The only other way is war breaks out in that person's country, like Sudan, Somalia, years back when they had serious war. And the people in the refugee camps there, Canada actually provided planes to go and bring them in without papers. They brought them in here and gave them papers to settle them here. So that's the only time you can do refugee or asylum. They're the same thing. Asylum or refugee is that there is a threat to your life, a threat of death that your nation or the police is unable to or unwilling to protect you from. So you're running away from that threat. Now, visitor's visa, if you come in as a visitor, then you can now go to immigration later, maybe a few days later with your story and all that. You'll be welcome that this is what is chasing you. Now, if you're they have places they call safe countries. Safe countries. Safe countries are like US, Britain, a country whereby there's no threat to you. You cannot come from there and say you're now claiming asylum. It doesn't make sense because you could have claimed asylum in those places as well. So one has to be careful. Although there are exceptions. Some people walked in from the US, and they claimed from Nigeria, they flew to US, they got visas and all that. They walk through land and they tell you. So the thing is, they won't turn you back initially. They will accept you, welcome you. You tell your story, they'll give you work permit, if you came with your children, they give them study permit, and then you settle into the system. You wait for the day of reckoning, the day that you're going to appear before an immigration board to defend your story with evidence, with proof. So it's not just saying, oh, Boko Haram is chasing me, they're kidnapping me. You have to show proof, concrete evidence that will back you up. If you show that proof, now the day of reckoning could take as long as 6 months. It could be 2 years. In that time, you get work permit. You can be working. The children are in school and everything, but you can't be too relaxed because you don't know what the end is going to be. So, but on the day of reckoning, when you appear before the board, if your story is convincing, your evidence, your proof is convincing, then you'll be welcome to Canada to begin the permanent residence process. You will start the process from then on. If you're refused, you can appeal. Now, the success rate for appealing is just 5%, unfortunately. Now, there's still another process after that. It's called the Humanitarian and Compassionate Grounds, H&C. You can still apply under that. Under that means that, oh, I have nowhere to go. The danger I'm running from is still there. I've settled in the system. I've done this, I've done that, and all that. You show all your proof. Not danger. The only thing with H&C is there's so many people on that list, on that queue. You could be on that queue for as long as, it could be 2 years, it could be 4 years, who knows, depending on the backlog. On the day they now write to you and consider your case on H&C grounds, that's the day they make up their mind. That's your last card. If they say no, it's one way back home to your country. Return to sender. If they say yes, then you start your permanent residence application from there. So that's how it works. For the visiting visa, for you to come and visit, you have to have somebody invite you. You can choose to come as a tourist, yes. Under normal circumstances, yes. But when they see that some people have come under tourism or visiting or conference and did not go back, then they start, red flags come up. when they see somebody who is saying, I'm coming for a conference. When genuinely you may be coming for a conference, but because people have abused it, and they raise, it raises red flags. So the denial, they deny lots of people, from Nigeria for the visiting. I think it has improved a bit. Some people also ask, oh, can I work as a visitor? They say you can work as a visitor. That was during the COVID. The COVID time, the people who were stuck here because the borders were closed and were working in the healthcare system, yes, they gave them preference. It was a special policy that was instituted for visitors to apply for work. And even healthcare people who helped during COVID, they were given permanent residence status. Now they extended the visitor visa thing that you can work for the next 2 years. You can still apply as a visitor when you come in, you can apply to work. The danger there is that you still have to go through the employer who still has to go through what I explained prior. They have to advertise. They must be looking for what you do, first of all. Advertise it for 6 weeks, looking for a Canadian first. They cannot find, apply to the government, convince the government that this thing they really need. They've done everything. They can't find a Canadian. So it's not as easy as, the policy says I can apply to work. Therefore, you just go and work. You can't. Because for you to work in Canada, you must have a social insurance number. Visitors do not get social insurance number. And anywhere you apply to work, you need your social insurance number and card. You don't just make up a number. You need the card to show proof and all that. So that is it about the visitor visa. Let's move on to Rural Northern program. Rural Northern is, from the word rural, they are small areas with some of them population of 8,000, population of 10,000, population of some are even 100,000, and they're looking for people in specific areas. Now, before you jump to, okay, I'm willing to go to, even if it's 2,000 people or 2 people, it's not as easy as that. Because it's rural, because it's small, they only need very few people. The other time, one of those rural, they approved certain rural city towns for this program, just few of them. The other time, one of them selected people from all over the world. They only selected 20 people from all over the world. So what are the chances? And then it depends on your occupation, if it's something they need desperately in their community. So you must get an approval from that community. You must get a job offer first. What you do must have been advertised in that small community. Then, of course, if you are lucky, you are interviewed. After the interview, if the community must give you an acceptance letter too. So it's not as easy as, oh, I'm willing to go to, even if somewhere where there are only 2 people. It's not as easy as that. For the AIPP's Atlantic Immigration Program, we have 4 provinces in the Atlantic area of Canada. That's the easternmost part. Those 4 places are New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador. Those Newfoundland / Labrador, that's one province. So they're not 2 separate ones. So those 4, they're on the Atlantic just because they are bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. So those 4 areas, Atlantic Immigration Program, they have a special program for those areas. Now for that, you must first of all get an employment too. An employer, a designated employer. They have a list of designated employers. Again, it boils down to the fact of what you do, if it's needed, if they're advertising it. Let's say you're a project manager and they advertise for project manager. You send in your CV. If you like send 100 CVs to different, if they don't respond to you, you can't do anything. You can't proceed. So even if they respond, you're interviewed, you must succeed in the interview. If you succeed and you get the actual, they don't have to go through advertising and all that stuff because it's a special program. However, it's only if you succeed and you get the actual offer letter. Yes, that's when we now proceed with the immigration program for that area. And it includes you and your family. Family is your biological spouse and children. I'm not talking about your village or extended family. So that is it for Atlantic Immigration Program. We'll go to NANI. NANI Pilot Program. Nanny pilot program was introduced 2019 for nannies, those who are coming for nannies. Now, you could be a nurse and you want to come, or caregiver, nanny/caregiver. You don't, the program, again, you still have to do IELTS, even though it's nanny. You must have minimum of a diploma in anything, but you have had maybe volunteering, taking care of children, not your children, taking care of somebody else's children. You could have worked in a daycare. It's not compulsory. It's even better if you worked one-on-one with some families, taking care of their children. You could take a nanny course online, which is very, very easy, maybe 2 weeks course, something like that. You must have first aid, CPR. Now when it opened in 2019, it was easier. It was a paper application. They have a slot for 1,500. Then they had a slot for 2,750 people from all over the world. For months, the thing did not fill up because it wasn't popular. But now, it's online, number one. Number two, now they've streamlined it to the fact that it opens in January, only January of every year. And believe you me, so before that January, you're expected to get everything ready. We evaluate your diploma or degree in Canada. You take the English test, the score is very low. Then you also get all your first aid, whatever ready, anything you need to get ready already. The day it opens in January, let's say it's opening January 4. The day it opens, the last one that opened, it filled up within 2 hours. The slot filled up. So that is it for nanny. The good thing about it is if you're able to get you in, then they check the requirements, everything, you meet all the requirements. It involves you and your family. Now it's work permit that leads to permanent residence. So you must get an employer who is looking for a nanny in Canada to sign an employment contract with you first. That's part of it. Without the employment contract, you won't be accepted. So the employment contract is that you're going to work for that person as a nanny or caregiver for 2 years in Canada. After working for 2 years with that person, then you will now gain the permanent residence. Because at the time of application, we would have submitted everything, both the work permit application for you and your spouse, study permit for the children, and the permanent residence for every one of you. We submit everything in January. But you must fulfill the 2 years of working as a nanny and show proof. The employer will show proof. And then your PR will be sent to you, whatever province you're residing in. So that is it on nanny pilot. And that's those are the programs, so far. We're hearing news that the Express Entry might introduce some new requirements whereby they're going to focus more on occupations that they have shortages in. We don't know what those are, but I know healthcare is a big one. It's a big deal, healthcare. So we don't know. So they might decide to choose from the pool instead of, they might lower the points. Maybe they need construction managers desperately. They might say, okay, this selection, we're only selecting construction managers. And they lower the point to maybe 400 or 300 or something. We don't know. Until they release the details, we don't know which occupations, and we don't know how they're going to do it. But it's expected to come up sometime this year. Alberta also, if you have a relative, they've introduced the relative stream, whereby if you have a relative in Alberta, you can be selected, but again, it's tied to your occupation. Occupations are in shortage in Alberta. It's tied to it. Again, you must still be in the Express Entry pool for you to be selected. And again, relative is blood relative because you have to show proof. So overall, coming to Canada as a PR entitles you and your family to live here permanently when you come in and reside here for 3 years. you could be here for 3 years at a stretch to fulfill the residency status. Your PR card is valid for 5 years. With the PR card, you can go in and out of Canada within 5 years before it expires. You can go in and out, go in and out. Or if you have come to stay, you just stay. After 3 years of living permanently in Canada, then you qualify for citizenship. Now, the 3 years that you're a PR, the benefits are just that the PR card, you can go in and out of Canada without visa. Also, all the healthcare benefits, it's free healthcare. Your children go to school for free in secondary and elementary. When they get to university, they pay 1/3 of what an international student would have paid. Not only that, they can get student loan from the government and throughout their study period. And after graduating, they start working. 6 months after they have settled in their job, the government can start taking the money back gradually. They work it out, they spread it out, and they can start taking it back gradually. So those are the important benefits. Free healthcare. Health is wealth. Without good health, you can't do much in life. Then the only difference between you and a citizen are two things. As a permanent resident, you cannot vote. And as a permanent resident, you don't have the Canadian passport. So, but when you fulfill the 3-year residency, you can now apply to become a citizen. You take a short test, and once you pass it, it's quite an easy test. Then you're sworn in as a citizen. 48 hours after you're sworn in as a citizen, you apply for your Canadian passport. With a Canadian passport, you're visa-free to 176 countries in the world. You don't need visas to 107, UK, US, everywhere, and so on and so forth. So that is it in a nutshell concerning migrating to Canada. Next screen, please. So just like as introduced, we're regulated. Now for anybody to assist you to migrate to Canada, you must be regulated. You must be licensed with Canadian immigration. We have our own body and we intercede. We're a go-between between you and Canadian immigration. So usually if you qualify, if we assess you, you qualify, we sign a use of representative form authorizing us to represent you on behalf to be a go-between between you and IRCC. We represent you in all Canadian immigration matters. We represent you if you want to come for studies. We represent you. We can help you with your visiting visa. We can help with the work permit if you're in that category. Anything to do with Canada, we are authorized to represent you. We've served lots of families and individuals in making Canada their new home. And we've obtained admission study permits for international students to different colleges and universities. Next slide, please. %95% majority of our clients are from referrals that we have held. To date, we've assisted 185 families to relocate to Canada, and they're in different provinces spread out across Canada. So we even assist you with settlements after arrival. Depending on the province you come into, we link you up. We always link you up with somebody on ground in that province to help you with settlements, help you source for accommodation, let you know which areas are more preferable and stuff like that. So our clients come from all walks of life, different professional backgrounds, different nationality, culture, and based in all continents. And we always go the extra mile to ensure you achieve your Canadian dream once you are assessed and you meet the requirements. There is no magic. There is no shortcut. We cannot talk to any immigration personnel to please help me with my tribesman or tribeswoman, or this is my own person. There is no such thing here, because I've heard a lot when people call me, can't you help us talk to immigration? There's no such thing here. It's law and order. You either meet it or you don't. And the next slide, please. So just a little bit, about me residing here for the past 24 years. It's a good place to raise kids. I raised 2 boys here. Rabiola knows them. They're all grown up now, and they're all almost settled. I have a bachelor's degree in English, linguistics, master's in information resource management, postgraduate diploma in immigration studies, Canadian immigration studies, and I've been licensed since 2013. And so if you think you meet any of the areas or you have questions, well, the floor is open now for questions. We've talked about the statistics. We've talked about, these are just some testimonials. I remember when this lady came, it was in the midst of winter, and she stayed at my place briefly for like 5 days. For the first 3 days, she couldn't take her bath because of cold. Meanwhile, it was warm inside the house, very warm for us, but she was still shivering, So, but I mean, she's since settled in. And the next slide, please. Just welcoming people. These are people, a fraction, very little fraction of the people who came into Calgary where I live. So I welcome them at the airports and all that. Next slide, please. Other families, next slide. Other families, next slide. Other families. These are testimonials sent, from different clients. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next. Yeah. So details on how to reach us. We're on 2 different emails. You can reach me on WhatsApp anytime from 10 a.m. Calgary, Canada time. 10 a.m. Calgary, Canada time is best, except for Sundays. Sundays from 12 noon Canadian time. You can also check us on LinkedIn, Facebook. Website is currently being updated, and we look forward to welcoming you to Canada. Thank you so much for your time. Rabiola, please, you can take over.
Thank you, Ma. Yeah, okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen now. Okay, thank you, Ma, for that information. Some questions have come in. Brother Shegun, please, if you have more questions, you can pass them to me. But I'll just go through the ones that we have on the screen here, first of all, before we give the floor to people that have raised up their hands. So number one, somebody asked this question. So he's 48 years old, same as his wife. He has tried to speak to an immigration consultant, and they told him right off the bat that because of his age, that he doesn't qualify. He's a mechanical engineering. He wants to know how he can get a work visa. Is it possible to convert visa to work visa? And he also wants to know about student visa, which I think maybe I can help to rephrase the question this way. So for somebody who is 48 years old and his wife, can he, through coming as a student, then as a student, can he eventually still qualify to apply as a permanent resident? Maybe that's another way to rephrase the question.
Yes, I've already addressed that yes, you can come in as a student. It's at the discretion of the officer attending to your file. They look at the age, they look at what else do you want to come and achieve. But at the end of the day, I've brought in 40-something-year-olds, into Canada. At the same time, they've refused some. And even the young ones, they've refused some young ones. They've given some, So it's at the discretion of the officer at the end of the day. So there's no harm in trial. So feel free if you want to apply. But we don't expect that you have a PhD and then suddenly you want to come and do a diploma course. It doesn't add up. That's a red flag right there. So, yeah. Okay, for work, you can't apply from outside, like I had earlier explained, except your spouse, your partner, gets the study permit, applies for you for open work permit, again, it's 50-50. They may not grant you, but they must have granted the partner a study permit for you to even be able to apply for open work permit or to attempt.
Okay, so I guess what you're saying is that somebody who is 48 and above, or less, or somebody who is
45
above,
and 46 and
okay,
above,
so
yeah.
46 and above. So let's say that person is able to get a student visa. After finishing their studies, they can still qualify
for PR, like I said. Yes,
okay.
They get 3 years. If they do a 2-year program, they get 3 years work permit. Immediately they graduate. They have to graduate before they get that 3-year work permit. And after working for 1 year out of that 3 years, then you can apply for permanent. It varies from province to province. Some provinces, when you study there, they add points for you because you studied there. Some, some because you have worked for a minimum of 6 months there, they add points to you for you. So it varies. So there are different ways to become permanent after studying.
So somebody also asked there if they can send you their CV and advise them on the best way forward. So I believe you can do that. The information she showed. So, but we have that information. We have the email address. We have the phone number. So we'll share it at the end of this session. So if you want to send her your CV and that of your wife, and she can advise you on the best way forward. So I think we can easily answer that one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's another question here. It says, how can I demonstrate strong social, economic, or familial ties outside Canada? How can I, Madam, how can I show that with examples?
Okay. So, again, that's a very tricky one because even if you, like the website says, even if you submit everything required, you show heaven and earth, it's still at the discretion of the officer to decide at the end of the day. However, we always advise people, let's say you want to apply a loan first. Okay, so you left your family back home, fine, even though they don't believe all that. They know that later you still apply for them to come in, but that's okay, that can prove something. If you have traveled before, you have travel history, some sort of travel history, that could help. If you have a very important position, maybe you're taking a leave of absence or something, that could help. But it's not just a leave of absence from a job that you earn $200,000 a month. What's that going to do for you? That's not motivation enough, to bring you back. You have a very good job with a good position, backed up with maybe letters from your workplace or something. Yeah, those are ties. Maybe you hold an important position. Maybe you're the president or treasurer of some professional association or something or whatever. They're just examples. There's no set, they didn't say anything per se that this is what it is to show your ties. It's up to you, as much as you can show. We just push it to them, let them decide at the end of the day.
Okay. So I guess this person is already, this person asking this question is not currently in Nigeria. The person is already outside Canada. So I'm already outside, the person is already outside Nigeria. And, so let's say the person is in Qatar. How can he or she show that they still have enough ties to Qatar where they are residing?
That's a tricky one. To Qatar, if you're there with your family, I'll advise, first of all, that you apply a loan first. Your family is there. And then your status there also matters. If your status is still valid for maybe the next 2 years or something, that helps. They know you can still go back there. Your family is there and stuff. But your status is expiring in a few months. It's a red flag. So, it depends on your circumstance, your situation. Also, if you have a very good job, showing that you make good income, you have good savings and all that, those could help. Again, at the end of the day, it's at the discretion of the officer. But you have to play your part. You have to build yourself, play your part, and then leave the rest for them to decide.
Okay. Question here. I think this one should be easy. Is it possible to relocate from one province to another after getting to Canada?
Yes, it is. There's no law that says, however, some of the provinces, they expect you to spend at least 2 years in that province. And what I always tell people is, what are you looking for in another province? All the provinces, Canada is Canada. The rules are the same. Once you, all my 185 families, every province that they went to, nobody has moved. Nobody. What are you looking for? If you find what you're looking for, you have a good job, you're settled, the children are in school, you're doing well. So what else? Is free healthcare all over Canada, across Canada. So there's nothing exceptional about any other place except maybe, okay, the famous Ontario, it's just like Lagos or something. But there are people in Benin, there are people in other places, they're doing well. They have their peace of mind. So, but I've not seen any of my clients move. So that's to testify to the fact that usually and it's not even easy to move. It's not, even with a family, as you will find out when you get here. So that's the best I can tell you. But most provinces expect, because you applied to that province, you were the one, they didn't come and select you from your country out of the blue. You selected it, they expect you to spend at least 2 years there before you make any moves. If you are expected to contribute to that community before you make your move.
Okay, thank you. This one, my sister applied for a visit visa last year with the help of an agent, but there's been no update each time she checks online. She intends to apply for another visit visa, but another agent told her it's impossible unless the existing application is cancelled. Is that correct? So can you have 2 applications running at the same time?
No, you have to withdraw one. You withdraw one,
okay.
and then you apply. You can reapply. You're free to reapply anytime. Yes, there's a backlog from the COVID era. I have a visiting visa that is still pending since September last year. A mother who wants to come and visit, elderly mother, to visit the daughter who has 4 children, settled here. And we've been waiting since September. But then there are some that they've responded to already. Some were responded to within 1 month. Some have been on for a year. So it depends on the officer handling your file, the amount of work they have to do. But there's a backlog. There's been a backlog since COVID days.
Okay. How much proof of funds do we need for express entry? And for how long? So this is for a family of 2. So I'm guessing family of 2 means husband and wife.
Husband and wife,
right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, a family of 2 is husband and wife, or a mother and a child, who maybe who doesn't have a husband or something, or widowed or whatever. So 2 people anyway. And okay, by the way, when you're applying for express entry or provincial or whatever, you apply as a family. It doesn't matter if the other party is not coming yet or is not ready to come. You still have to apply as a family. So when you get here initially, the other party who doesn't want to stay right away is free to go back and be coming in and going out within 5 years with their permanent residence card. So a family of 2 proof of fund is about 16,000 Canadian dollars, which, let me translate in Naira, would be like about
let's do it in Qatar Riyal, because a lot of the people here are from Qatar.
Okay.
So that's times 2.6.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at about 40,000 Qatar Riyals. Sorry, that's 40,000. Let's say about 36,000 Qatar Riyals, thereabouts.
Okay, 16,000, for a family of 2.
Yeah.
If you're single, it's 14,000. If 3 of you, husband, wife, and a child, is 20,000. It's for 4 people, 25,000, and so on and so forth. The proof of fund is not meant for the government. They've calculated what you need to settle down. It's also called settlement fund. Whether for express entry or provincial, you need to show proof of fund. It's the money they expect you to have in settling down, in the sense that when you get here, you have to you have to get accommodation. You don't know how long it takes before you get a job. You have to feed yourselves. You have to equip your place. So they need you to be self-sufficient until such a time as you start settling into the system. You get a job and you start earning income so that you're not, on the government. So that's the reason why you need to show the proof of fund. Now the proof of fund must be savings or fixed. They don't accept properties. No properties, no jewelries. It must be savings, fixed. You can combine with pension. You can combine with cooperative if you have. Those are the things, not the checking or current account. No. The savings must have been there for minimum of 4 to 6 months. For provincial, minimum of 3 months. Now, when they say it must have been there, the complete amount must be there consistently. And it must continue to be there throughout the processing, because at any point in time, randomly, they can choose a family and say, we need an update on your finance. Okay.
Okay. Last question that I have here before I let people that are raising up their hands. Please, is it 100% guarantee to get a PR when one has a work permit in the case of rural northern program?
Yes, it is. When you get a work permit or Atlantic immigration program, yes, it is.
Oh, now, okay. So one more question before I give the floor to those raising up their hands. Please, I want to know how skilled workers, okay, I'm not sure, how skilled workers can possibly get work permits in Canada. I thought if you're okay, I'll let you answer the question. I want to know how skilled workers
by skilled workers? Because I talked about federal skilled workers / express entry. So what do you mean by skilled worker? Are you talking about tradesmen, tradespeople, welders, plumbers?
Okay, I will leave the floor open and let people ask their questions directly instead of me reading it. So that way you can. So just raise up your hand if you have any question, and you can unmute yourself. Right. So I'll let Alaka Dolapo go ahead and ask his question or her question directly.
Thank you very much for this section. Thank you so much, Madam Bola. We really appreciate your information. Okay, so my question is it possible to have the relative point if the primary applicant is the husband and the relative is only related to the wife?
Yes, absolutely. Once you're married, it could be your in-law, it could be, so that's fine. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, as husband and wife, the relative could be related to wife, it could be related to husband, even if the other person is the principal applicant, it doesn't matter, as long as you're married.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
RCCG Rehoboth, who asked that question. I want to know how skilled workers can possibly get. I want to know how skilled workers can possibly get work permits in Canada. If you can answer that, I don't really understand it.
I've talked about the fact that you cannot get work permit from outside. You cannot, except maybe if you joined us late. You cannot, due to regulations in Canada that the employer must first of all advertise for 6 weeks, trying to get a Canadian or a PR. And if after 6 weeks they cannot find, they will now apply to the government of Canada for permission to employ a foreigner. They will list all the Canadians they interviewed and the reason why they did not qualify. Then they will submit those forms, the 12-page forms, with $1,000, and wait for 4 to 5 months for the government to say yes or no. If the government says yes, then they will issue a certificate, LMIA, to the employer. With that LMIA certificate, they will now use it to apply for work permit. But it's usual, no employer wants to go through 8 months or almost 1 year looking to fill a position, because usually there are still people who are unemployed within Canada, unless they're desperate. The position is really scarce. It's really scarce.
Okay, can I ask this question? This question somebody asked me before. So let's assume that I have a relative who owns a business, who owns an African store, for example, and does catering services, also owns an African store. And I am good at making African food. Can that person bring me in on a work permit? Like, I'm very skilled at making amala, for example.
I understand.
I just use that as an example.
Yeah.
Like you see with a lot of the Chinese restaurants.
Yeah. So yes, it's possible, as long as they still have to, the employer or the relative still has to go through the process of advertising for 6 weeks, trying to get a Canadian or permanent resident. Remember that a Canadian could be a Nigerian, it could be a Qatari, it could be, as long as you've attained the Canadian citizenship, you're a Canadian. A PR, permanent residence, could be from any part of the world who has not attained the citizenship yet. So if after 6 weeks of advertising, they cannot find anyone who meets the requirement they need, yes, they're free to apply for somebody, a foreigner or whoever, whether it's their relative or not, who is skilled at doing that. Yeah, and yeah, if the government is convinced that they've done everything reasonable and they could not find within Canada, yes, they will issue the LMIA certificate. Now I have a perfect example. Years ago, about 14 years ago, there was a gentleman, the cousin is in Ottawa, and she has a restaurant. And this guy in Nigeria does catering. Then it's not very common for guys, but we read physics. He has a bachelor's in physics, but then he was always interested in cooking. And then somebody told him to start managing her catering outfit. And he started managing it. He cooks very well. So when the cousin advertised, who has a restaurant in Canada, advertised for 6 weeks, could not find a Canadian, or at least I think she wanted to help him. Anyway, she applied to the government of Canada, showed proof that she could not find somebody who could do Nigerian dishes, specific dishes. And then it was approved and all that. We started all the process. She was issued an LMIA certificate and she applied for the work permit. Now, guess what? During the work permit, because the person is based in Nigeria, your work permit application goes to Nigeria embassy, Canadian embassy in Nigeria. If you're based in Qatar, your work permit application will go to the Canadian embassy handling your region. At the Canadian embassy in Nigeria, he was invited for interview. When he got on the interview date, they took him to one room and told him to give the recipe for making some kinds of Nigerian meal. And they told him to make some. So if you are not really skilled, don't attempt it, because randomly they can select you to come for interview. So but it's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, thank you for that. So somebody wants to know if there's an acceptable age for student visa. So let's say I'm 50, can I get a student visa? And it will still lead me to permanent residence.
I've talked about that when we talked about the 48-year-old, yes. So it's at the discretion of the officer at the end of the day. Right now, there's a lady who is 51. I advised her, she said she still wants to go ahead and try. We can only try. Even if you're 22, there's no guarantee. It's just that maybe the favor is a little bit tilted because you're still young. They see that you still have, you're just starting out life. A 50-something-year-old, they look at, some officers may look at that and say, I mean, what else does this person want to come and achieve? It looks like the person is coming to stay, especially because people from that person's region have been coming and not going back. So it's at the discretion of the officer. I will not discourage you from applying. It will still lead to PR. However, the main thing is getting the student visa. And some schools too, that for admission purposes, they don't accept WAEC, because for diploma, you only need your WAEC. They don't accept WAEC that is older than 5 years. So right there, that has cut the person off if we apply to that particular college. But most other colleges, they don't have that stipulation. So there's no age limit set out anywhere. It's just that the officer looks at the totality of everything. So what I usually advise such people is, okay, we apply for a diploma in an area of what you are experienced in or you studied. It's a particular subset of what you do. Maybe you want to specialize in a particular area. Maybe you are in finance. Maybe you want to specialize in risk management or something, or business analyst or whatever, something. You cannot be, you could not have studied or what's it called, HR, and suddenly you want to come and study nursing. So, yeah. So one has to apply wisdom.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other question? Anybody wants to ask any question? We have the floor before we let her go, because we've been on this for like 2 hours now. Any question? Okay, so no question. Thumbs up. Thank you. Any question?
There's an Alvin that raised his hand.
I think he's giving us thumbs up.
Yeah.
Alvin, are you raising up your hand or you are thumbing up?
I'm raising up my hand.
Oh, okay. I saw it as thumbs up. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I'm a graphic designer based here in Qatar with more than 8 years experience. I studied marketing, H&D marketing in Accra Polytechnic back home in Ghana. So I want to ask, can I apply for a bachelor's in graphic design in Canada University?
What's your age?
That is what I'm 30, I'll be 31 on September.
What's your highest degree?
I have H&D in marketing, and then I also have a bachelor in marketing.
So why do you want to come and do another bachelor's?
Because I love design, graphic designing, but I don't have bachelor's.
You realize that you don't need a bachelor's to survive, to excel in anything. You know, you don't need a bachelor's. And apart from that, you realize that a bachelor's degree is 4 years, and you're talking about $28,000 per annum. So you have to show proof of capability. That's number one. Number two, you don't necessarily need a bachelor's to make it in life. You can choose to do a diploma program, which is 2 years. That even looks more this thing than you have a diploma, you have a bachelor's, you need another bachelor's, is a red flag.
Okay.
But
I'm
can
not
he
saying it's
apply
impossible.
for PR? I guess that's where he's going. That without
How old are you again? 30 or 31?
31 in September.
31. Oh my, you're just on the edge. You're just on the edge because you have diploma and you have a bachelor's, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you married?
Yes, I'm married.
How old is your wife?
28.
Does she have what's her highest? What's her highest?
She's SHS.
So what? Does she have a bachelor's or master's?
No, please.
Okay.
SHS.
Okay. So for you, you're just on the borderline because 2 or more certificates will also earn you more points than somebody with a bachelor's alone. But then somebody with a master's will have more points than you. It's possible, but you must score 8 or 8.5 in that English test, in the IELTS.
That's no problem. IELTS is not a problem for me. I'm rest assured by God I can score.
The what? You're rest assured. Are you the marker?
Okay, let's.
You have what?
I have a big God. My God is bigger than the island.
Okay, let's, Mr. Alvin, I think you can contact her privately.
You can contact me,
so that you can, So let's take two more questions and we'll close here. So there is somebody who's asking, this one should be easy. Is there a limit to the number of times one can apply for student visa, and does the last refusal affect any other new one?
The refusal does not, whether it's the first or the last, does not affect anyone. However, they advise that once they refuse you, they advise you that you're free to reapply. However, you have to do a complete new application with new information. You don't just apply with the same thing, again. You're going to meet with the same results. So let's say you have additional information. Maybe you skipped something, maybe about your finances, maybe you skipped something that was critical or something, you add it. Again, it's still at the discretion of the officer. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. Okay. But you're free to. It's not like you apply 2 times and you strike out, no. Or that it will affect your PR in future, no.
Okay, so the last one here, before we go, my wife studied science lab tech. That's a bachelor's in science laboratory tech, but she's into baking and pastry. She's 31 years of age. Would you advise her to apply for a diploma course in culinary management for the purpose of PR? So she studied SLT, bachelor's B.Tech. She does pastry and baking for work. She's 31. Is it advisable to apply for a diploma in culinary management for the purpose of PR?
Does she only have a bachelor's degree? Okay, it was a sent question. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If she only has a bachelor's degree, yeah. Funny enough, medical lab technologists or technicians or scientists are needed in Canada. So there was a time Saskatchewan even dropped the points as low as 65. In order to select construction managers, medical lab technicians. It was specific. They just dropped it for that purpose. After that, the thing went back up to 70-something points and above. So she can either go into any of the 2 areas, it's fine. For medical lab, she could choose to come for a diploma in maybe environmental technology. I have a case like that. She studied medical lab and we advised her to come in for environment, because environmental is big here too, or she can apply into, if her passion is really in baking and pastry, she can apply for culinary studies. Yeah.
Okay. There's Josh raising up his hand. Yeah. So for Lashade, I think you should contact privately. So Mr. Josh, and that will be our last question for today.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I want to ask, is it possible for one to study medicine as first degree in Canada? And if if yes or no, what is the process for that?
Okay, study medicine. What's the age of the person?
17.
Okay, so first of all, Canada and USA, you cannot study medicine directly. You first of all have to have a bachelor's degree in any science subject, either BSc biology, BSc chemistry, BSc biochemistry, biomedical, whatever. It must be a science subject. You must have a bachelor's degree first. After your bachelor's degree, then you now start the process. You have to take exam to medical, whatever, and spend another 4 years for medicine. So even if you could study medicine directly, they don't allow foreigners to come and study medicine in Canada. They don't. So, but if he really wants to, he needs to first of all apply for a 4-year bachelor's degree in any science subject. Then after studying here, then can start the preparation for medical school.
All right, thank you. That's the same thing I was told actually, but again, there was a conflict that there could be like some a certification or pre-course that can lead to that.
There's nothing. You have to have a bachelor's. The same thing with US. You have to have a bachelor's degree first in any science subject, and bachelor's degree is 4 years.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Rabiola, unmute yourself, please.
I guess there aren't any more questions. So we can call it a night. But before we go, I have Brother Pastor Wale. Are you there, sir? Probably not. Okay. Okay, it's not there. Brother Nusa, can you please lead us in the closing prayer? But before that, I want to, on behalf of the Redeemers Men's Fellowship, the executive body of Redeemers Men's Fellowship, I would like to thank Auntie Bola King for coming to give us this presentation. And on behalf of the leadership of RCCG, Rehoboth Assembly, Qatar, Doha to Qatar, I also want to thank you for spending this time to take us through this session. For as many that have joined, we have her details. So if you need to contact her, you can do so privately and ask your questions. Then she can give you a private consultation and tell you things that are specific to you. The purpose of this is just to present general information which will help you to make informed decision. So in the light of that, Brother Dele, are you there? Brother Dele?
Let me just say thank you.
Okay.
It was my pleasure to be able to present good information, because there's good, there's bad information, to present good information concerning Canada. And so feel free, just like Rabiola said, if you need more in-depth knowledge, to contact me. Okay, thanks so much for listening.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Radile, can you please lead us in the closing prayer and we end the session for today? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rabiola, and thank you very much, Ma, for your time with us this evening. I'm just going to take the prayer very short. Pardon me if my camera is not on. I'd just like us to appreciate, thank God for giving us the opportunity to have this session. Let's thank God for the knowledge that has been shared and the vessel that the Lord has helped us to impact us this evening, this day. We want to thank God on behalf of the men folks, and of course the men fellowship. We thank God for the church, for what the church is doing, for how the church has given us this platform to be able to do this. We say thank you, Father, for everything. We say thank you for the vessel that you have used again. For as many that have partake today, we pray that the message, the seed that has been planted today, will bring forth positive fruits in the name of Jesus. For all our subsequent
Yeah, we can't hear Radile again.
Amen.
Amen. In Jesus' name. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending. Have a blessed night and have a good day, depending on what part of the country or what part of the world you are. All right. Bye. Thank you.